In the heart of Tokyo, where hospitals gleamed with order and efficiency, no one imagined that behind the sterile white walls of a small private clinic, something horrifying was happening. Patients went in expecting healing and disappeared without a trace. It would take years before the horrifying truth surfaced. A respected surgeon had turned his medical skills into tools of death, killing patients for insurance money and burying their bodies beneath the very floors where life was supposed to be saved. This is the chilling story of the Japanese surgeon whose greed turned his hospital into a house of death. The charming healer with a hidden agenda, Dr. Kenji Takahiro, was once seen as a rising star in Tokyo's medical community. Smart, polite, and articulate, he had studied at one of Japan's top medical universities. He opened a private clinic in the late 1992, specializing in general surgery and minor procedures. Patients trusted him instantly. His smile disarmed suspicion, and his reputation grew through word of mouth. He promised affordable care, quick recovery, and personal attention that big hospitals couldn't provide. But behind that warm personality, Takahiro was drowning in debt. His clinic, despite its popularity, wasn't making enough profit to maintain his lavish lifestyle. He had a taste for luxury cars, foreign vacations, and gambling. The pressure to keep up appearances pushed him toward dangerous decisions. He began falsifying medical reports to collect additional insurance reimbursements from government programs, billing for procedures he never performed. At first, it worked. He made quick money, erased debts, and started expanding his clinic. But fraud has limits, and greed never stops at one line. The birth of a deadly plan. When the financial authorities began tightening medical audits, Takahiro realized that small-time fraud could soon get him caught. That's when he came up with an even darker idea. He noticed that many of his elderly patients had no family. They came to him alone, trusted him completely, and listed him as their primary emergency contact. Some even asked him for help managing their insurance or pensions. To a man with no morals, these patients weren't people anymore, they were opportunities. Takahiro began encouraging certain patients to sign additional life insurance policies, claiming it was for medical emergencies. He would act as the witness or even manage the paperwork. The beneficiaries, of course, were listed as himself or shell companies he controlled under fake names. It was brilliant and monstrous at once. Soon after, these patients started dying mysteriously. Each death seemed natural on paper: heart failure, infection, or post-surgery complications. Takahiro wrote the death certificates himself, sealing the case before anyone could question it. The insurance money flowed in steadily. He became obsessed with the rush of it, the thrill of manipulating death for profit. The first suspicion. In 2002, a nurse named Aki Morimoto began noticing strange things. Patients who seemed healthy would suddenly crash during routine procedures, and Dr. Takahiro always insisted on being alone during their final moments. She once walked into an operating room unexpectedly and saw him injecting something into a patient's IV while whispering under his breath. When she asked what he was doing, he smiled and said it was just a sedative. Later that night, the patient was dead. Morimoto grew uneasy. She began secretly writing down details: the names of patients, dates of deaths, and the exact time Dr. Takahiro had been alone with them. But she was young and frightened. The doctor had connections, and the staff respected him deeply. When she finally confronted him privately, he dismissed her concerns coldly and told her she was too emotional to work in a hospital. A week later, she was fired for unprofessional behavior. She thought it was over. But years later, her notes would become the key evidence that finally brought him down. The hidden chamber beneath the clinic. As the killings continued, Takahiro faced a new problem: what to do with bodies that could draw suspicion. For most cases, he cremated them under the guise of medical disposal or family permission. But when the number grew, he needed a more permanent solution. That's when he began using the hospital's foundation itself. During renovations in 2004, he ordered construction workers to reinforce the basement floor and told them it was to prevent humidity from damaging medical supplies. In reality, he designed hidden compartments under the new flooring, sealed chambers large enough to conceal human remains. For nearly a decade, these chambers became graves for dozens of his victims. He buried their ashes, body parts, and even entire corpses after performing post-surgical incinerations. To the outside world, his clinic was spotless and modern. To those beneath the floor, it was a silent tomb. He grew bolder, experimenting with more efficient ways to kill lethal doses of potassium chloride disguised as pain relief, or anesthesia overdoses during minor surgeries. No one suspected him because he was the last person anyone would question. The doctor trying to save lives. The greed that exposed him. In 2013, Takahiro's greed finally crossed a line. He took out a large insurance policy on a wealthy widow, 68-year-old Harumi Watanabe, who trusted him after years of treatment. He convinced her to sign paperwork claiming he would manage her medical finances if she ever became incapacitated. Within months, she was dead from cardiac arrest following a routine abdominal surgery. Her nephew, however, wasn't convinced. She had been healthy, active, and had never mentioned surgery before. When he asked for medical records, Takahiro's staff hesitated. Then, the nephew discovered that the doctor had cremated her remains within 48 hours without consulting the family. He reported it to the police. What began as a small investigation into possible insurance fraud quickly turned into something much darker. Financial records showed massive payouts linked to dead patients, all signed and verified by Takahiro himself. Investigators found at least 18 suspicious deaths with identical insurance patterns. Police raided the clinic. The horrors beneath the floor. At first, the search revealed only paperwork insurance forms, fake death certificates, and ledgers linking payments to shell companies. But a construction worker who had renovated the clinic years earlier mentioned something odd: reinforced floors that didn't match building plans. Investigators ordered ground scans. The readings showed hollow spaces under the clinic's main corridor. When they drilled through the concrete, the smell hit them first, a putrid mix of decay and chemicals. Beneath the hospital floors were sealed compartments filled with human remains, skulls, bones, surgical instruments, and identification tags. The nation was horrified. A man who was supposed to save lives had turned his hospital into a cemetery of greed. Police confirmed that the remains matched several of the missing patients from previous years. It was estimated that he had killed at least 27 people, though some believed the true number was higher. Takahiro was arrested on the spot. The cold confession. During interrogation, Takahiro showed no remorse. He sat calmly, hands folded, explaining that his victims died painlessly and that he had simply redirected resources from the old and weak to fund better medical care for others. When police pressed him on why he buried bodies under his own hospital, he smiled and said, "It was convenient. No one looks under where they stand." He spoke about life and death like equations, inputs and outputs. He saw people as tools, lives as numbers. Psychologists later diagnosed him with narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial tendencies, but his intelligence and composure stunned even veteran detectives. The media called him the Butcher of Tokyo. His face was everywhere on every screen, every newspaper. Families of the victims gathered outside the courthouse demanding justice. His trial revealed years of manipulation, exploitation, and cold-blooded murder disguised as medicine. The trial that shook Japan. During court hearings, prosecutors presented financial documents showing how each death led to large insurance claims. Nurses testified about strange behavior, forged signatures, and sudden dismissals. The defense tried to claim that Takahiro suffered a mental breakdown due to overwork, but the evidence was overwhelming. When photos of the hidden chambers were shown in court, the audience gasped. Families broke down in tears as prosecutors read victims' names aloud. Takahiro, emotionless, only blinked occasionally. The judge called his actions an atrocity against the foundation of trust between doctor and patient. He was sentenced to death by hanging. Yet, even then, his final statement sent chills through the courtroom. He said, "Every hospital hides death. I just stopped pretending." The aftermath and national shock, the scandal rocked Japan's medical industry. The Ministry of Health ordered nationwide audits of small clinics, exposing several cases of minor insurance fraud, but nothing close to Takahiro's scale. For years, public confidence in private medical institutions plummeted. The clinic was demolished, but the land remained unsold for years. Locals believed it was cursed. Families of the victims built a small memorial near the site. with candles that still burn each year on the anniversary of the raid. Former employees struggled with guilt. Some admitted they had ignored signs of wrongdoing because they were afraid of losing their jobs. Others said they believed Takahiro's charm and couldn't imagine him doing harm. The nurse who first tried to expose him, Aki Morimoto, was hailed as a silent hero. Her hidden notes matched the timeline of his killings perfectly. In the end, what makes this story so terrifying isn't the method or the body count, it's how easily it happened. How a smiling doctor, respected by all, used the system meant to save lives as a weapon for profit. Because evil doesn't always wear a mask or wield a knife. Sometimes it wears a white coat. And when it does, even trust can become a death sentence.